Good morning. I'm Ann Whitelaw, Concordia University's Provost and Vice President Academic, and I'm sorry I cannot be with you in person today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University is located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Kanien'kehá:ka Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and the waters on which we gather today. Tiohtià:ke, or Montreal, is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today, it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. On behalf of our entire university community, I'd like to bid you a warm welcome here to Concordia. We are very proud to host this year's International Society for the Learning Sciences Conference with the theme Building Knowledge and Sustaining Our Community. The importance of the work you do for education systems like ours cannot be overstated. Your research on how people learn best is at the cutting edge of innovation in teaching and learning. Let me tell you, we at Concordia are very eager for those research-based, innovative approaches to benefit our students' learning experiences. But we know that the journey from your lab to our classrooms is a long road indeed. That's why my colleagues and I are happy to see that a substantial amount of this time at this conference will be spent discussing the types of partnerships and collaborative work that help move your innovations along that long road to mainstream practice. An especially nice part of these partnerships between learning science researchers and teacher practitioners is their ability to mobilize knowledge in both directions, not only bringing research knowledge into the classrooms or digital learning spaces, but also elevating the questions arising from learning spaces into the labs as topics of rigorous research, along with the extensive practical expertise practitioners can bring with it. We hope while you are here, you will discover our local communities of practice that are dedicated to this type of work, like the Saltese community, who is running their own conference concurrently this week, and I believe there's some formal opportunities for the communities to come together. Local communities like these play an especially important role in translating your innovative work into more systemic changes in our teaching and learning systems. These local communities continue to be key agents in informing our institutional approaches to teaching learning. A couple of examples would include faculty learning opportunities and the design of learning spaces, helping our approaches to administration and policy be evidence-based and practice-aware. We are also happy to see the programming for this year's conference addressing issues we know to be of vital importance for the future of education, especially the work to be done in decolonizing and indigenizing our learning spaces, as we will see in Jan Hare's keynote talk on Wednesday. If you haven't experienced her online course about reconciliation, it is a recommended learning experience and resource for personal and institutional reform. Additionally, I see a substantial amount of the conference's programming will address the issues, challenges, and successes in making learning more inclusive and equitable. You are to be applauded for these much-needed efforts. Finally, I'd like to thank the conference organizers, Liz Charles and Jim Slotta, for their work in bringing this conference to Concordia, as well as those from the Concordia community who helped make this happen. I see that through your hard work, you've managed to create an inclusive, accessible, and environmentally responsible event, and even achieved the Platinum Sustainable Event certification. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you again to the ISLS community for all your collaborative work to improve learning and education. I hope you enjoy your time here at Concordia and in Montreal, and I wish you a rewarding conference experience. Thank you.
We have learned together with the organizing committee and all the chairs a lot more about what that means in terms of organizing an event like this. And I hope that you'll get something of that from this opening presentation that we've assembled today. We have a lot of speakers to get through, so I'm going to try to keep moving. But first, just to recognize, I mean, probably half of you out there have a role in this meeting, okay? So I'm going to flip through just some of the people who have been central to this, and you've met those of us here on stage. You'll meet Liz in person here in a second. The program committee chairs for ICLS, led by Paulo, and for CSCL led by Krina, have done, I mean, it's hard to even sound without like a broken record about the amount of work that's been put in by people on these various committees that I'm going to show you. So you can just trust that they have spent many, many hours in meetings and many, many nights sweating the details. And yes, thanks to these two. No one here is more relieved to see this moment than the two of them. And all of their panels, you see faces here that did a lot of work in the background, pulling in your papers, your reviews, building sessions, sending notifications, and I'll get to some of that in a second. But just to recognize all of the kind of roles that happen in a conference, and I won't read all these names or I will be up here for 10 minutes and I'm only supposed to have 2.5. Okay, so I urge you to look at our website where you will see all of these people acknowledged, and I just want to make sure that at least we get their faces up so we can see them and we can celebrate them for everything that they've done to make this conference and this annual meeting what it is. I'm gonna click a few things. Oops, that's okay. That's fine. And none of these slides that I'm putting up here are without a substantial amount of investment and work. The two at the bottom, unsung heroes, and I think Megan is actually here, hopefully this morning. She's been doing all of our technology for 6 or 8 years now. Is Megan around? Too bad. But we're delighted that she could attend the conference this year and to have her. I want to say a couple things about the meeting. Just these are things that kind of came to my mind as I was getting ready to do this. First, that there's a bunch of stages of this, and the first one is kind of thinking about the model. So we had to figure out the worst case and the best case of attendance, and then figure out the pricing. And I think something that went fairly well this year, building on the previous 2 meetings, especially, were the kind of sliding scale of costs that made it much more possible for people here to attend. And for those of us who have the funding and we're late career, we had the kind of base rate, but then we got it progressively down to early bird, and LMIC was less than $100 in students. So that was something that seems to have really been advanced this year. We expanded the paper formats a couple of ways. We added tech innovation. That was a CSCL innovation last year, and this year we added it to both meetings. Practitioner sessions was a new one this year, and the innovation strand was a new one. I just came from an innovative meeting that was hybrid and included guests from India and other countries. So hopefully we'll see a few more of those innovations this week. I just want to take a minute as somebody who's been through all this, and I know at least, I don't know, fifth of you have been through all of this for this meeting, but this is a list of some of the things that go on here: building the team, hospitality and catering. We want to thank Concordia because I'm from Toronto University and Liz is from Dawson College, which doesn't have this kind of capacity for 820 people. Thank you very much. And so Concordia was able to partner with us, and they had the sustainability model that we could work through to give us that certification. But everything from calling for papers and reviewers and senior reviewers and decisions and registration system and program and building the sessions and figuring out all the conflicts and then putting that into Huba, which we still clearly have to iron out some bugs, but the conference website, communications, housing, weather, all that stuff, the volunteer coordination. If you see people in a red shirt, unless you're wearing a red shirt and you're not a volunteer, actually see a couple, you can take credit, right? The conference dinner. I mean, these are things that are just, and also, and this is something that I can just I can make a point of this, but there's more than just this annual meeting of speakers and sessions and symposia. At this annual meeting, we have all this pre-conference stuff, the DOC consortium, the workshops, board retreat, new member session, committee meetings, graduate student meetings, journal meetings. And I think to me, what that says is that the annual meeting for this community is a process of formation. So this is how we come to identify with the learning sciences. This is how I came to identify. I've been bringing my students to this meeting, and this is how we get to know who we are and what this society is. That's actually how the society comes to be. We have the journals, and we have some of the kind of existential markers of an academic society, but it's our rehearsal through shared participation in this annual meeting in all of its different dimensions that really does help maintain and sustain through the years. So for me, this is a really incredible community of practice, and to be able to participate in bringing it into form this year has been an honor. So I just want to say thanks for letting me serve that role. And now I want to hand it off to Liz Charles, who's going to welcome us and give some more story of her own formation as a learning scientist.
So while Rob is doing that, I'd just like to say a personal thank you to Jim and to the chairs of the program committees, because it's been an amazing journey getting to know them. I've always known Jim for many years, but getting to know these remarkable people makes me even prouder to be a learning scientist. So welcome to Montreal, bienvenue à Montréal. We, as Jim mentioned, we are probably the most unlikely group to be hosting a learning sciences event, because I come from a college where there is no learning sciences except for us, and Concordia University does not have a learning sciences department, even though they have an education department. So how did we all come together with this? It's just fate, I guess. So, Tim, am I using, can you just, the arrow keys? Okay. There we go. So Dawson College, located on the map. That's where the pre-conference workshops were. Thank you to them, and thank you to my colleagues who were there. And they, by the way, they say, please excuse the overly hot tropical rooms. We wanted to make sure that we defied all the myths that the North is cold. Concordia University, with their 4 beautiful buildings that you will be visiting. And then we have Riverside, which is our conference dinner. And you're going to have lots of fun because you're going to be in a part of Montreal that has silos, which is sort of an interesting idea, right? Silos, and why take silos and change them into something meaningful. So just one last thing about sustainability. We did do a lot of work on sustainability with a lot of help with Concordia's group and Dawson College's groups. And for them, sustainability means more than just the environment. We know that bringing you here costs the environment something, and we've done lots of work to try to make sure that we have offsets. Sustainability for Concordia and Dawson means something more as well. It also means equity, and it does a lot of, it also means inclusion, accessibility, and we've made all efforts to make sure, even with these stairs, you know, you say, how come there are all these stairs? Well, we have old infrastructure, and yet we're trying to find ways to build and make buildings better. So whenever you have an issue, please come ask us for help. And we've done things like childcare, making sure that people have guides if they need it, so on and so forth. So I thank Concordia for doing that, and I thank our colleagues for making sure. So just before passing the baton to my other colleagues to talk about the hard work that they did, I just want to have a personal moment here, because Jim asked me to say, he talked about the community. He talked about being together, like what's the importance of being here physically together. And that reminded us of my journey. So my journey into the learning sciences started in Seattle in 2002, sorry. And in 2002, I happened to meet Janet Kolodner, and she invited me to present. She said, why don't you submit? Because there's going to be a learning sciences conference. And that was my introduction. And I met her by chance. She was a discussant on a paper that I was presenting at AURA. And at that point, so I met Janet, and Janet introduced me to lots of people in the community. And then in 2004, again, I was in Santa Monica and sitting, waiting for the keynote to start. And Jerry Stahl was in the lobby, and he said, "So what are you doing?" And I discussed my path, and he said, "Why don't you come to Philadelphia? I've got this project, and I'd love for you to join." But again, a very unusual meeting in the lobby. And at CSCL in Rutgers in 2007, once again, I took a pre-conference workshop. I didn't know very many people, I knew people that Janet had introduced me to, but we went for dinner afterwards. And that's where I met Yanis Dimitriadis and Jim and Mike Tissenbaum and all of those people, just by chance, just by being together physically, just by being in a hallway, waiting for an elevator, sitting down at a bar, whatever it was. I met all these amazing people who have dramatically changed my life. And I think that that's what is at the core of being together. Those casual, random meetings that change your life profoundly, make you meet people that you would never have met and feel close to them, as close as if you were my neighbor across the street. You are my community. And one of the things my colleague Sylvia d'Apollonia said when we first started, she was my buddy for going to all these conferences. One of the things that she said, she turned to me and said, "Liz, we have found our community. We have found our people. That's what ISLS is to me. I found my people, and thank you."
That's hard to follow. Okay, well, welcome to ICLS 2023. In Canada, I think first time in a socialist country. So very excited about that. So for ICLS, we had, I'm not going to read all the numbers, but we had the pre-conference workshops, interactive tools and demos, doctoral consortium, and early and mid-career workshop. Tons of submissions. Most of those get accepted because they are, more for community building and workshops and everything. We had new categories for the practitioner papers. We had 34 submitted and 26 tech innovation papers. But the bulk of the submissions were here. So we had a record number of 791 submissions, 323 full papers, and 105 accepted. And the numbers in parentheses are the ones that were moved to short papers or posters. And so, if you're wondering about acceptance rates, etc., those are 32.5%, which is the same as last year. And we had 29 amazing submissions for symposia and 19 accepted. So the most accepted topics were around equity. We had about 7 sessions. Around science education, teacher learning, and CS Ed, which sounds like a very interesting enriched combination. So you see that we have many sessions on those topics, but also on many emergent topics like AI in education, for example. So just some quick review stats. We had, the reviewers, we had 684 reviewers and 2,334 reviews. And the longest review was 1,700 words. So it was basically it was longer than the paper itself. And we had, 164 meta reviewers and 790. So, I think a round of applause for you because you were those students. And collectively, we wrote more than the Bible. So, something to be said about that too. So we had submissions from 44 countries, 77% from US and Canada, and a growing but still very small number from low and middle income countries, such as Brazil, India, and others. 70% of the population, but still only 7% at ISLS. So a lot of work to be done there to include those countries, and a lot of work has been done by lowering the registration fees and the affiliate groups and other groups and networks that are trying to bring more countries and more people. And the countries that had less than one submission, because sometimes it was a co-authored paper, are listed over there. They are also equally important, but just couldn't fit in the graph. So now we go to Karina for CSL, and I just went just before to acknowledge my co-chairs. So one of them is here, Rita Kiziko, I think. Where is there? Thank you, Rita. Rita is the first ICLS co-chair from Africa, so a pioneer. Thank you. And also Karen Brennan and John van Aust that could not be here from Harvard and Hong Kong University. So thank you very much, and Karina.
Lovely to be here. Speaking of socialist countries, being born in Eastern Europe and living in Norway now, Canada feels like home. So we've had intense activities on the program CSL program committee. I would like to start by thanking actually my amazing co-chairs, 3 colleagues who have done a lot of work. Marcela Borge. Marcela. Elizabeth Koch from Singapore. Marcelo Wordsley, who's coming later today. The submission numbers for CSL, as you can see, are slightly lower. Yet this was the same process as Paolo described. We had 162 submissions in total. 65 long papers, 59 short papers, 21 posters, and 6 symposia. And you see here the accepted numbers. We have 63 entries in the program, and those 63 include also technology innovation papers and practitioner papers that were submitted to CSL, but they are being presented in joint sessions. The submission rate or the acceptance rates, as you can see, are similar to ICLS, and we chose for actually keeping that rate relatively similar in the 2 conferences. Of topics that have been the submissions have mostly focused on and are relatively reflective of the CSL thematic area are collaborative learning, obviously, knowledge building, innovative technologies, engagement, STEM research, and CSL. professional development and innovative technology, and then especially novel analytical approaches in collaborative learning research, which is an area that is characterizes CSEA. You can see here also the distribution per countries, and I'll be going a little faster from here. It's the same rationale as Paolo described. We see obviously the top 5 submitters, and then we see also a set of newcomers on the right side of the screen. And I would like to continue also on behalf of Paolo and the other program co-chairs by actually, yeah, right. So one slide. As I mentioned, we had 162 submissions. We had 210 reviewers. More than 5, sorry, I got a little derailed. More than 505 reviews. We had 64 meta reviewers, and we had the amazing 14 reviewers who reviewed both for CSL and ISLS, and we're very thankful for that. And as Paolo also indicated, we also wrote a book together, which is Das Kapital, should be with a K. And then I'm moving to the part that I present on behalf of the 2 program committees. And this is especially important for us to mention because we hope that we created here both practices, but also a number of artifacts that will support the organization of the conferences and the work of program committees in the future. So we basically try to systematize a little the review process. We try to create guidelines that are in a sort of for sustainable use. So we started first talking to previous program chairs. Then we reviewed existing practices and documented challenges from previous conference when it comes to review, when it comes to the type of reviews received, and suggestions on how that could be improved. We consulted also other review guidelines, for example, golden rules of JLS, the Journal of the Learning Sciences. We engaged in creating new guidelines for reviewers and senior reviewers. Probably those who have been reviewers for this conference have used those hopefully and found them useful. And in that process, we consulted the ISLS board, the ISLS Equity and Justice Committee, and the Accessibility and Inclusion Advisory Team of the conference in order to make those reviews as inclusive as possible and as inclusive of norms and values that characterize the community. We also created a new review form and a system to detect less friendly reviews. We published and instructed reviewers. But one important product of this work, and here I feel I have to give credit to Paolo, is the creation of an automated database system and a review repository. So a repository that collects all the names of the reviewers who contributed this year, including also their expertise and reviewing experience that could be revisited and used in the coming years. So just as an example, these are the new review guidelines. Some of them might look familiar to some of you, and we hope that they will be reused and improved in the years to come. And this is some screenshots of the database system created, and which we hope is also it will create sustainable practice and make the work of reviewers easier. Finally, I need to repeat, and it's my pleasure to thank all the submitting authors, all of you, to reviewers and senior reviewers, and to the session chairs who are here at the conference already doing a fantastic job. Thank you for your efforts and enjoy the conference.
Good morning, everyone, and my name is Yotam Hod from the University of Haifa, and I have the pleasure of presenting the nominations for Outstanding Paper Awards on behalf of the Annual Meeting Committee, to which I'm the chair. So just a little bit very quickly about the awards and the selection process. First of all, big congratulations to anyone that was nominated. It's already a big honor just to be accepted here. You all saw the numbers and the acceptance rates, and then being nominated among that pool of already research excellence is already quite an honor. So there are awards for each conference for ICLS and CSCL standing paper. There's the Naomi Miyake Award for ICLS and CSCL Outstanding Student Paper, and then Outstanding Tech Innovation Award. And the nominations were made by the respective program chairs. As you can imagine, that's a very intensive and challenging task. And then we had international juries, and I want to thank the international juries for reviewing and deliberating around these papers very intensively over the past 6 weeks or so until they reached their decisions. So, oh, I was really worried this is going to happen. Okay. Hold on. I actually, is it okay if I escape? Hold on. Oh, it's not letting me do that. It's not helping that my hands are shaking a little bit. Okay. Came prepared. Okay, so let's save our applause to the end. I'm just going to give you a few seconds to see because there's a lot of slides to go through. I'm not going to read the names. It'll also take too long, and I don't have that time. So here's 3 of the ICLS Outstanding Paper nominees. I think everyone had a chance to see. So here's the other 3. Okay. And now I'm moving on to the Naomi Miyake, the Outstanding Student Paper nominees for ICLS. The first 3. Take a moment to see all the names. And the other 2 in this category. And now we go on to CSCL and the Outstanding Paper nominees for CSCL. There's 3 of them. And I'm continuing. And now the student paper nominees for CSCL. I believe that's all 4 of them. And then the Outstanding Tech Innovation Papers, which run across both conferences. So here are 3 of them right here. And 3 more. Okay, so now's the time to applaud all the oh, and the last point, sorry, is back on here. Right. Yes, here we go. And you can see them on the Hoover system by CMATAC. So thanks very much.
Hi, my name is Bill Penuel, and I'm at the University of Colorado, Boulder. And today it is my pleasure to be able to welcome a new class of ISLS Fellows elected in 2023. A key goal of this program is to build a respected cohort of leaders who sustain the ISLS community and advance the broader value and visibility of it. New fellows are named through a selection committee consisting of existing ISLS fellows and elected by the current fellows. In introducing this year's fellows, I'm going to share a snippet from their nomination letters to share a bit of why they're being recognized with this honor. In the interest of time, I'll invite you to give a brief round of applause for each elected fellow. And I'll ask the people who are here to stand if you are able and willing, or otherwise make yourself visible to the group as your name and bio is being read. The first new fellow is Bridget Barron, who is the Margaret Jack Professor of Education and Learning Sciences at Stanford's Graduate School of Education. Her research investigates the dynamics of interest-driven learning ecologies to better understand how access to diverse opportunities across home, school, and community settings can support sustained engagement and meaningful activities over time. She has changed the way people study and think about collaborative learning. She's provided framing for studying learning ecologies and know-how on how to carry out analysis of video data. Melissa Grisalti is a professor of mathematics education in the learning sciences and dean of residential colleges and residential education at Vanderbilt University. Her research considers how to design learning environments that support students' empowered engagement with mathematics. Her projects explore how tasks, social interactions, norms, and broader narratives support student learning and identity. She embodies the goals of the contributions to the field through scholarly advancement, leadership, mentorship, and service to the society. Ulrich Hopp is a full professor of collaborative and learning support systems at the University of Duisburg-Essen University in Germany. His research is focused on computational techniques for learning and knowledge building, including network analysis techniques and data mining methods applied to the study and support of online communities. Ulrich has been a pillar in the construction of the CSCL community, especially in Europe, and its later alliance with the ISLS community, one of the constructive voices that paved the road to emerge between the newborn ISLS and the CSCL informal community. Lonnie Horn is a professor of mathematics education at Vanderbilt University. Her research centers on the way to make authentic mathematics accessible to students, particularly those who have been historically and contemporarily disenfranchised by educational systems. Through her rigorous and elegantly designed research, along with her fearless engagement in public conversations about education, she has contributed significantly to how educators in the learning sciences and more broadly in the field of education understand teaching. Oscar Lindwall is a professor in communication at the Department of Applied IT at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden. His central research topics revolve around the sequential organization of instruction, the sensitive nature of feedback, and the use of video for interaction and research. His contributions demonstrate his deep engagement with the issues related to communication and learning with computational artifacts. He has demonstrated unique leadership capacities, such as president of the society. Jasmine Ma is associate professor of mathematics and urban education in New York University. She's concerned with how dominant forms of mathematics instruction actively and systematically marginalize particular populations of learners. Her work contributes important theoretical, methodological, and practical knowledge for how to disrupt and transform mathematics instruction and learning to be more equitable, accessible, agentic, and effective for a diversity of learners. June Oshima is a professor at the Graduate School of Integrated Science and Technology at Shizuoka University in Japan. He has researched knowledge building practices in Japanese school curricula for elementary school to higher education. Dr. Oshima has made a number of important contributions to knowledge building research. His community building efforts led to the formation of a small but solid group of learning sciences researchers in Japan. His service sets an example for the rest of the community. Edna Tan is Distinguished Professor of STEM Education at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Her research investigates the design, support, and outcomes of equitable and consequential STEM learning for historically underrepresented youth across learning contexts and over time. Dr. Tan has been at the forefront of justice-oriented learning and teaching, particularly in STEM, since the beginning of her career. She is a staunch advocate of learning environments that recognize learners' humanity and brilliance. Jinwei Zhang is Associate Professor, School of Education, University at Albany. State University at New York. He studies how students work as knowledge builders to address authentic challenges facing the local and global communities, leveraging creative knowledge processes and technologies. Jen Wei has made significant contributions to learning sciences in general and specifically in educational technology and computer-supported collaborative learning. As co-editor of the Journal of Learning Sciences, he provides important and dedicated service to the ISLS community. Please join me in a final round of applause.
Fine. Okay, now is when you experience a bit of fast forward because of, as you can imagine, we've fallen behind time with all those moving pieces, and I need to click here. So I'm gonna just remind you that the schedule is online. It's coming together. We're still making little changes. All the keynotes are here. They showed them in the library. That was, I don't know how that happened, but you can imagine keynote speakers. All of them are a wonderful assembly. We're looking forward to Henri Jaurès coming up next. The program I think you've heard enough about. Presidential session at the end, though, re-examining core constructs in the learning sciences, led by Joshua Danish, our president, and who conceptualized this session as one of his last official duties of his presidency. And so we're looking forward to that just before the closing session. Thank you, Joshua, for a year that you've led us. Two special sessions that are coming up, one this afternoon on the Change Lab that we led this year to engage this community around discussions about its annual meeting. We are going to present the results of that and engage you and an online assembly of people in discussions. And then AI is kind of on everyone's mind. So we thought the CSCL community sort of got us going, thinking about a special session, and that will be on Tuesday at 2:30. Uva, yes. Social media. Thank you to the social media. I think you should all put positive things up there, negative if you need to. But we're certainly having a fun time watching and seeing all the posts that people are putting on. Finally, just to enjoy yourself, take some breaks, get out, have good times with your friends, meet those casual acquaintances that Liz mentioned, and I think that's probably enough for all of us at the LOC. I want to finish by reintroducing Paulo Blickstein, who is going to introduce our first keynote speaker.